All right, this is Awkward. I'm back with the Awkward interviews with my man Christian Smalls. We've been trying to do this for a while. I don't know, it could be going on 6 months or something now. Chris and I have been talking for a while, ever since I first heard about him and reached out to him. He's somebody that I greatly admire, and it's been incredible watching not only kind of the growth of his name or presence out there in the world of activism, but also seeing kind of the strategic work he's doing, how effective he's been and how he's grown, from someone doing incredibly important work in a more confined area, so to speak, to really branching out into a variety of interconnected areas. So before I welcome in Chris, I just want to give our viewers who may not be as familiar with him kind of how he first came to national and even international attention. And I am curious about where he was before this, but for most of us, we first heard about Chris in late March, following an employee walkout at his Amazon warehouse in Staten Island. They were protesting the lack of safety protections during COVID, and the result was that Amazon fired Chris, who was the lead organizer. What they claimed publicly was that he had violated their rules about social distancing. Of course, many of us know that whether they had rules or not, no one at Amazon was ensuring that they were followed. No one at Amazon was providing the proper PPE or in any way protecting any of their employees. In early April, they pledged that they would ramp up their distribution of personal protective equipment, but actually a memo leaked that revealed they were really trying to smear Chris Smalls, as well as damage any potential union efforts. They called him not smart or articulate, um, which to me reads as racism 101, among other things. And they also, told reporters even that, his conduct was immoral, unacceptable, and arguably illegal. None of which is true. To me, it's incredibly admirable and certainly not illegal. And the reality of this situation is very clear when you look at the fact that really what they were doing by firing an outspoken Black man, trying to organize all workers of all races and economic positions, was that they were retaliating, and protecting themselves, because that's their business interests, their profits are obviously in many ways really clearly more important to them than their employees, or society or the environment at large. And to me, the easiest way to identify this reality is the fact that Chris drove to work every single day with another Amazon employee, and even though they fired Chris for supposedly breaking this social distancing rule, they didn't even quarantine the person Chris drove with every day. They just let him right back into work. So clearly that wasn't what this is about. As it turned out, this just turned Chris into a leader in the movement to organize Amazon workers, in the movement to organize all essential workers. Chris has since spoken multiple times, including at the convention for the People's Party. He's spoken about the possibility of a general strike. And he has a long list of specific demands, and his planned marches on Jeff Bezos's homes. Chris, sorry for the lengthy introduction, but it's, to me, worth it. I'm really glad to have you here, man.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been a busy year. 2020 was a busy year for me, so I
That's for
appreciate.
sure. That's for sure. So, um, tell me quickly before we get into kind of like an update on where we are in terms of Amazon and beyond. What was your upbringing like? And, were you involved in any activist work before this, or kind of, you were essentially radicalized by your conditions?
Yeah, I wasn't an activist. I wasn't an organizer. Just a concerned supervisor. Um, Pretty much, my upbringing is, I came from a single parent home. My mother raised me, a strong black woman, and I watched her go to work every day, work multiple jobs, go to school, even night school, and I kind of carried that torch from her. My mom actually has a little history of activism herself. She'd done some things in her workplace,
Oh,
and
cool.
I guess naturally, I kind of picked up. Didn't even know that until actually last year. My whole
Interesting.
life, I never knew that my mom had some activism role back in the day in her old job in New York. So, yeah, I just was a concerned supervisor. I wasn't an activist, and
Right.
when I got fired, it pretty much when I did get smeared, or at least attempted to be smeared, that's what made me really take the fight on.
Yeah. Interesting. You were a hard worker, and unlike many supervisors, and I certainly don't want to say all at Amazon or elsewhere, I've had some good bosses and some not good bosses, but um, a hard worker yourself, and also someone who cared about your employees. And the result was, instead of doing the right thing and listening to you, they did the wrong thing. They did the typical corporate thing. They didn't expect you to be like, I'm not going to take that.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
glad you did, though, and I'm sure a lot of people are. um so, you know as the Amazon thing specifically has, progressed, do you believe that, I mean, it's probably more than a belief, you would know better than anyone, I suspect. Have any positive changes come yet? Is Amazon a brand new company? I know the answer to that one. Are people any safer? You guys, the ones packing this crap for us spoiled people across the world, and the ones delivering it are heroes. Essential is the word, because a lot of us are afraid to go out food shopping or buying anything, so we're getting more delivered than ever before. So are you guys any safer than you were when this started?
Well, they're safer now that I was fired because before that we wasn't. We
Yeah.
had no PPE, we had none of the cleaning supplies, we had none of the protective gear, delivery drivers as well, and yeah, that was before. It's funny, it's BC before Chris, but after Chris, AC,
Yeah.
we did receive uh, PPE, the masks. They did the temperature checking thing. um, they implemented what they should have done in the beginning. And I'm not saying that makes the process safer, but they did implement some safety things.
Okay.
As far as the companies, it's not a brand new company, it's business as usual. It's always been profits above people.
Yep.
They continue to not just fire me, but they fired several others and exploited a whole class of people. Once again, you were talking about the lower class, working class people. Um, they set up shop in our hood. They hire from our neighborhoods, and once again, you see 9 months later, we're still going through this. The cases are still rising. The workers in the facilities are not able to be socially distanced and do their job correctly. Not all the time.
Mhm.
Certain areas of the building, yeah, but when you're picking and packing on an assembly line,
Right.
there's no way you could practice safe measures.
So what do you think the solution is then? How is it just decrease, making us recipients of the packages wait a little longer because they have to spread people out more to do it safely, and like that's just life? Are there other solutions that you've and others have proposed that they're just not willing to take?
Yeah, my solution is to shut the shit down. Shut it down until until you're able to get a hold on the virus. There's no way you're going to stop the spread of the virus by continuing to have thousands of people in one roof. It doesn't work like that.
Totally.
This
Yeah.
virus is airborne. So my suggestion would be to, any building that has case, which is probably all of them, the close them down for the minimum, 14-day incubation period. That's how you stop the spread of the virus, by separating the people. But this is never going to happen, at least not until, I get enough workers' power to shut it down. So that's my solution on it.
Okay. So that, when you first said shut that shit down, I say that about I say that about prisons and jails. I say that about the schools they're trying to send my kids back to. But I thought to myself, how if we shut an Amazon down, and believe me, it probably goes without saying to anyone who watches my videos or knows me that I do everything in my power to shop locally. That's not always possible. And also it's a privilege. There are a lot of people who their only solution is to get what's the most affordable, right? And so I feared in shut that shit down that meant a lot of people weren't going to be able to get the things they needed, and thus the virus would kind of creep back up in a worse way in other ways, where people are having to go out more when they are trying to quarantine at home. But you made a good point in kind of specifying what should be so obvious and should have already been done, should be being done. If there's a positive case, shut that building down, shut that part of the process down, wait the 14 days, retest everybody, and then only then can you reopen it. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That would be the safest way to operate. But
Right.
once again, we don't live in a country that puts people first. They put the profit first. So as you've seen, Amazon accumulated $90 billion off the expense of our backs, and that's because they allowed their business to run as usual.
Yep.
Um, but my advice for those who have a hard time, um, I guess, weaning away from Amazon, you gotta just remember Amazon is fairly new companies, haven't been around that long. What was you doing 10 years ago?
We
You
got hooked quick, we got hooked on our cell phones quick, right? Like we
Yeah.
forget. Yeah, we did survive 10 years ago.
So it's and I can tell you, being a worker there for 5 years, I can count on both my hands how many times I order from Amazon. You
Yeah.
don't need it. You won't miss it. Trust me. And what was you doing 10 years ago, or less than 10 years ago? You were getting up, supporting your local stores that are going out of business, by the way. Or,
100%.
so we gotta remember where we came from. And that's what society has forgotten, where we came from. We're so in tune with the 21st century and technology and all these new luxuries that we have, that we're forgetting about, how to survive. And how did we survive 10 years ago without Amazon?
Right.
Trust me.
That's a really good point, and that's true in so many ways. None of us know how to grow our own food or anything like that. And I remember protesting Barnes and Noble, the physical, the physical store, the in these strip malls, because they were closing down the local mom and pop bookstores. And then fast forward a few years, and Barnes and Noble gets essentially taken out by Amazon. These
Amazon.
like even like more master things that like don't just sell books, they literally sell everything. Um, and that's why we say eat the rich, right? I mean, like, not only is the company profiting off of people like you, and I mean, it's Jeff Bezos as an individual, absurdly rich. And then, to me, just want to touch on this real quick, or as much information as you might be able to share. The stories that are leaking out, the ones that there's probably tons that we don't even learn about. But just the other day, I heard about Pushan Brown, who was 38, and it was her job to test other workers for COVID. It's staggering to believe that she, the one testing people who probably, however many, whatever percentage of which have COVID and are breathing in her face, she never got an N95 mask. There was no social distancing. She didn't get hazard pay. And she came home recently with a headache and died the next morning. So, have you heard anything from her family? Do you have any thoughts on these kind of extreme horror stories?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was the first to speak to her family. I spoke to a worker at that building that told me about the case, and I immediately contacted the family, and I was able to talk to her sister, who's handling everything because
Right.
it's just her that's taking care of her now motherless daughter, who's 12 years old,
Wow.
and yeah, it's a sad story. Amazon had Pushan testing for 4 months straight, every single day, testing workers nonstop. And this is my issue with Amazon. You have workers testing workers. It shouldn't be a thing. This is what they tell the media, that they implemented a whole 150 processes. This
Mhm.
is one of the processes they're talking about. That workers are either testing each other or they're testing themselves. They're not in the medical field. They're
Yeah.
not protected. They don't get the PPE that they need. They may have masks, but that don't mean that they're efficient or effective. And that's the issue that we're dealing with, that Amazon is failing to spend money on hiring a third party the right way to come and test the workers. They rather have the workers, once again, either test themselves or test each other, or the operation managers doing all these medical things.
All right.
This is save money. Once again, this is saving money for them,
Yep.
but at the expense of workers like Pushan, who lost her life at 38 years old, suddenly in her sleep. So when I think about her, I think about Breonna Taylor, who lost her life in her sleep. Totally different how they lost their lives, but just a simple fact that this young woman lost her life while sleeping. She
Right.
took a nap and never woke up again. And
And you know what? It's even
that,
more connected than that. There's good reason you made that connection, because black lives, black women, in particular, they are not, they don't they're not valued the same way, you know? And so it's easy for a bunch of white racist cops to run in shooting when they know it's a black woman who's in bed. And it's easy to throw this woman at the wolves of COVID to test to save a few dollars. And it's all this like PR, like you said, like they're making all these statements about these processes, um, but they're the cheapest and most harmful version of any process they could come up with.
yep,
And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's a sad situation, but I'm glad that with the efforts of me and several others, that the word is getting out there now. Her family is getting the funds that needed to bury her sister, because Pushan, when I met them, they didn't have any funds, enough funds to bury her properly. So like now that her story's out there and it's getting out there, it's getting the attention it deserves. We hope to do just that, do right by the family, take care of each other, because that's what we have to do. We have to uplift one another, uplift black women especially.
yep, absolutely. And the craziest part, which I suspect is why, and correct me if I I'm getting this wrong, but the reason why you founded Congress, the Congress of Essential Workers, is because Amazon's not the only company doing this. Um, Obviously, there are other major corporations who also don't pay taxes, who are also not keeping their employees safe, and who are also union busting, right? Like we just heard about Instacart
Mhm.
firing every employee who tried to unionize.
Mhm.
So tell me about the Congress of Essential Workers, who it's there to help, who's involved, and what your demands are.
Yeah, absolutely. I founded this org back in July. Actually, our first event was for Breonna Taylor, and we actually had a statement from the family. It was a beautiful event. Um, the Congress of Essential Workers is about everybody. We title ourselves essential workers, and we all are essential. And if we're essential, we're a necessity. That means they need us, and we need to be treated as such. So our mission is to garnish enough workers' power uh, across the nation, so which Congress say, you're an essential worker, you have to go to work in the middle of a deadly pandemic. We're going to tell them, hell no, we're not going to work until you take care of us and provide us with our demands, which is simple demands, by the way: PPE, a decent living wage, Medicare for all, paid medical leave, definitely financial relief of families who lost loved ones due to COVID, and taxing the rich, taxing the rich and giving that money back to our communities, the communities that we live in and come from. So those are just a few of our demands. They continue to grow as we face these issues in the country, but those are the core values of which we want to have implemented into today's society when it comes to working class people. So the Congress of Essential Workers, we represent everybody, all essential workers, no matter if it's Amazon, Walmart, Target, Instacart, FedEx, Whole Foods, the list goes on and on. We're here to protect all workers, and our plan is to absolutely do that.
Great. Yeah. I mean, if you're successful, that would be life changing, world changing. These are, you know, to the people in power, these sound absurd. To people who live like a normal person every day, this is obvious. This
Yeah.
is baseline, and it's actually what I've been calling, and certainly not I alone, but I have been calling for as, a significant part of the demands in calling for a general strike. We should general strike for those very reasons. And I believe you called for the same thing, because we they need us more than we need them, right? Like if all of us stop working, stop going to school, and stop shopping, the country shuts down. The problem, of course, because I tried for May Day, I tried for Juneteenth, I tried over and over again, and at different points in time, I had different people working with me, also trying. Um, Virtually at no point did I get, and there are organizations too, um, specifically focused on a people's strike or a general strike that I, throughout these last 8 months or whatever it's been, have worked with on and off periodically. Um, then, and yet what I really haven't seen, is that I've called out specific unions, I've messaged specific unions. Um, I know that the aviation union, Sarah, who's the head of that union, called for a general strike on, I believe, Inauguration Day, or it was Election Day. Not much came of that either, and she's a more high profile person than I am. So thoughts on a general strike, thoughts on the lack of union leadership, and thoughts on like the possibility of us aligning even across left and right, across all poor people, all working people. Like, can we do this?
Yeah, I thought about that too. I tried the same thing. I definitely called it a few times, but I'm a quick learner. It don't take me it don't take me long to realize that shit ain't gonna work. And the problem is that we in the wrong country, man. This country is so divided. It's beyond, I don't know. It's beyond the fact of we're going to have leadership in this country that's going to come together on one thing. We can't even decide, even within the left, we can't even fight for Medicare for all on
Right.
the same page. So what I've seen in my short period of activism is that it's too many egos involved, it's too many entities involved. Everybody has their own agenda, and it only matters to them when it affects them. And that's the problem with this country, you know. People don't give a shit until shit happens to them.
Right.
We're so retroactive instead of being proactive. We allow this shit to happen, knowing it's going to happen, and then we want to react and complain and cry and, you know, protest and whatever else you want to do. We can't do that. If we want to call for a general strike, you know, call for it and go through with it.
Right.
What I do, if I'm going to say I'm going to go to that, you know, Jeff Bezos' house on whatever day, no matter if I have 300 people or 3 people, I go.
Right.
That's just what it's about, you know. Sometimes you got to just shut up and do it, you know. And the easiest thing we could do is a general strike, like you said. You know what it costs us to do a general strike?
Yeah.
$0.
Right.
Stay home. That's all we ask you. And I guarantee every billionaire in this country that's going to lose all their millions of dollars in one day, they're going to be at our feet. But that's up to us, you know. And I don't know who's the right person, because that's what it takes. It takes the right person to call a general strike. And I don't know. It has to be somebody high profile, you know, somebody that has influence on the mass, like Bernie Sanders or somebody that will do this. And I guess all the other organizations and unions will follow along. But until then, it's up to us. It's up to the people in the bottom. Unfortunately, it's always been up to us. You know, we have to just continue to stay consistent, you know, and see what happens.
Yeah, I guess never stop trying to push the people with the higher profiles, because, you know, like both of us are interviewed by some significant media figures about the work that we do. It's not enough. You know, and people with bigger followings have asked for it, and it hasn't been enough. And, you know, I feel like it would have to be someone at Bernie's level, but Bernie's not going to do it. I think from my perspective, he's gotten less and less radical over the last few months. And he's still a member of Congress. Maybe if he were not in Congress anymore and he was like, you know, like a modern day Jesus or something, like he was just on his own, like doing his thing, like maybe people would listen to him, because, you know, obviously, like if people can get crazy about his mittens, you know, they might get crazy about something that requires them to do nothing. We're not even asking them to go out on the streets and get beaten up and tear gassed. We're just saying, stay the fuck home. You know what I mean? But I think the way you put it was, I think you put it really well. And on that note, you know, you mentioned force the vote. Well, you didn't. You mentioned Medicare for all, and that we can't even align on that. I see as much, this is, you know, a new train of thought, but all this is related to me. I see as much leftists that up until now I've agreed with on just about everything, calling for collaboration with Nazis, as I'm seeing as I'm seeing them focus on better aligning with existing allies who agree with them on just about everything. I saw people during the Capitol riots, which, you know, you said, we know these things are going to happen, but we don't react, or we're not proactive, we're reactive. So like you got half the country now reactively freaking out and you know, taking the attention away from real issues and things that we need to get done, to instead focus on impeaching someone who's already gone and who could easily be replaced with a better looking, more effective, smarter fascist down the road anyway. You know, and then you have the other half of the country cheering them on. And I'm not just talking about the 50% of this country that is Nazis and who voted for Trump. I'm talking about people I was friends with literally cheering them on, saying, well, they're anti-corporate, they're anti-government, so I'm on their side. I'm like, I'm a Jew. These people killed 6 million of my people. You're a black man. you came here, you're not you individually, of course, but like your ancestors most likely came here because they were kidnapped and brought here to be slaves. And slavery never ended. Now we have new slaves in prisons. So what do you like? I mean, what are your thoughts on all of that, man?
Oh, yeah, I know. I've been seeing I've been seeing certain things and certain people talking about, uniting with these far right groups and trying to find commonality and all of that, which is cool. Okay, I'm for the commonality thing, but here's the thing: they're not my comrades. These people will never be my comrades. They will never be any of our comrades. If you think, for one, I'm gonna trust these groups that, once again, like you mentioned, are responsible for uh, uh, slavery and killing, mass killings, and there's no way I'm going to ever consider them my comrades. So that's just clear cut understanding. Like, I would never unite with anybody on the far right, never. Um, Policy wise, we can always agree. There's common ground for policy wise. If there's Medicare for all, decent living wage, protections at work, those type of things, sure, absolutely, we can agree on. But I don't want to work with them. I don't want to work with them at all. I want to work with those who's really um, going to take care of society the right way. They want their own type of America, what they view as America. Our America and their America will never align, and that's what we have to remember. Don't don't fall for the one or two individuals that say all the right things. You can say all the right thing all you want, and we even said this last night on my call with my group. They was like, everybody, skin folk ain't get kinfolk. I mean, just because you a black man or a black woman in office doesn't mean that you're going to be representing me. So we just got to make sure that we stay true to our policies and what we want America to be. And, unfortunately, I don't know what that's going to look like right now. It's a very gray area when we talk about it, with everything going on. But once again, we, the working class people, we have to make sure that we fight back now while we have this window of opportunity. And the window of opportunity was given when COVID-19 came into play. When y'all seen what 2020, when I say 2020, 2020 was really 2020 vision. It was for us to really see the country for what it is and take action. And that's exactly what I did. And that's what I plan on doing for 2021.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it any better myself, not surprisingly. You articulate things, um, you know, in a way that, anyone can understand it, but in a way that is also empowering and inspiring. I think that's why, you think strategically and you speak in a way that doesn't, I mean, even when you're talking about like the way you laid out the fact that yes, we all working class people should agree that it's better for all of us, even if they want us dead. They know for themselves in their white America that like they still want a living wage. They still want to not die by going to work. So like we can work with them on that. But as I've been saying all along, I'm not inviting Nazis to my strategy meetings. You know what I mean?
There's no way.
Yeah. So I'm
No.
glad to hear you say that, man, because I've been shocked multiple times a day for the last however long. Um, and feel free to get his, to, I mean, say what you want about this. A lot of the people that are making me nervous right now are aligned with an organization that I have not publicly said anything bad about on purpose because I think they're so important. You are on the board of this organization. So the People's Party represents our greatest opportunity right now for a third party. The Green Party has proven itself not to be effective and to be corrupt. So the People's Party right now, that's it. Like The DSA, you know, gotta love them. There's, you know, other socialist organizations or parties. They've been around for a lot longer and have been far less successful in building the momentum that People's Party has in such a short time. You know, I got to give it up to Nick, who started this, for being this successful. You know, there's a lot on both sides of, you know, his background. Like there are people who warn me about his background, what he says versus what he did. I don't think that matters at this point, because what he's built now, he has done. I've seen him do it. And I'm impressed by it. And I am excited about the opportunity that it can provide. But you're on a board with people who I'm talking about, who are talking about aligning with Nazis and criticizing people, myself included, nitpicking little bits of language because I'm unwilling to do that.
Yeah, I know. I seen it, you know, but see, here's the problem. You know, people can't take somebody's actions. You know, that one individual would like to do that. That's on them. Sure. You know, that we can't pin that on the entire party. You know, I've seen people like, oh, jump ship. But that's the problem with the left. You know, the problem with the left is, you know, everybody rides a wave they ride the wave as long as the wave is smooth like butter. But as soon as it gets rocky, everybody wants to jump ship. And once you do that, you're dividing your own movement. You know, what certain individuals do, that does not represent all of us. And we cannot just like, okay, they're a part of it. You know, he's a part of this party, so it must be everybody. No, that's not our value. It's never been our value to run off of the you know, partnering up with Nazis or far right Google boys. I don't want to partner up with any boys, any group that has boys in it. Don't even hit my line. Don't even at me. It's not going to happen. If you got boys, any type of boys, Proud Boys, West Boys, East Boys, whatever, I don't care. You know, so we got to make sure that, you know, people got to understand, stay the course, be consistent.
Yeah.
You know, one person's action does not represent the whole entire party. If that was the case, it's like saying this, you know, we talk about policing. Oh, it's a few bad apples, right? We say this all the time. It's just a few. It's all cops are not bad cops. It's a few bad apples. Well, you know, what happens if there's a few bad apples on the left? What are we supposed to do then? Are we supposed to just cancel the whole movement? Abolish People's Party? No. And I'm not calling them bad apples either. I'm just saying that's an example. You know, we can't just jump ship every time you have a disagreement. Yes. Talk politics with anybody and find one person on this earth that you're going to 100% agree with everything when it comes to politics.
Right.
I fucking hate politics. So like, you know, talking to me, I'm gonna keep it real with you. And that's what it's about. Keeping it real. What we going through, the reality of the situation is we need a third party. That doesn't mean cancel the third party because a few people may want to, they have different point of views on certain things. You know, that's what it's about. We have to stay together no matter what.
Yep. Well said in so many ways. You know, the left, one of the biggest problems is, you know, this holier than thou attitude and the canceling
culture, man. This cancel culture is stupid.
Yeah.
People been trying to cancel me for things that I don't even, for allegations, you know, no proof, allegations, I'm canceled.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yep,
it's ridiculous.
That happened to me too. You know, I've been called a grifter. I've never taken a penny, not only from my activist work, I haven't taken a penny from my music. I give everything away. I'm a grifter. The fuck out of here. You know? So, you know, I'm glad to hear you say that about the People's Party. It's exactly why I have never said anything like cancel them or, you know, disband or whatever. But I thought it was also interesting, the connection you made, and this is a perfect way to like close out this conversation. You know, they say you can't abolish the police. It's a few bad apples, but you should abolish the People's Party. It's a few bad apples. In reality, even if they are bad apples, on the People's Party, which I also am not saying, even if they were, that is not evidence of the People's Party being a rotten tree or whatever. On the other hand, the entire carceral system, the entire creation of police and prisons in this country is unreformable because it was designed to, you know, to create profit off the backs of already marginalized people, to criminalize certain classes or certain communities. And the police who aren't literally beating, raping, stealing from, planting evidence on predominantly Black and brown and then poor people, they're the ones watching it happen and not saying anything. They're the ones who are still doing their jobs, patrolling and racially profiling. There's no way to be a cop and do it in a way that isn't continuing this system of oppression. I know you agree with that because you endorsed the 10 Demands for Justice, which we launched in May or launched in June after months of putting this together. I'm just curious for, you know, your thoughts on, you know, to go into further detail on the bad apple argument, like the argument that defund the police is a problematic slogan, and, you know, your thoughts on the movement to not just abolish police overnight or abolish prisons overnight and free the 2.5 million people incarcerated, but what abolition really is about, which is building these alternative mechanisms and a more humanist society where we're actually making communities healthier and safer, and we're creating, you know, a justice system that is about transformation and reparation. Thoughts on, you know, that these concepts and what you've seen, maybe since 10 Demands has launched, you know, toward putting us in that direction.
Yeah, so when we're talking about you know, abolishing the police, sounds good, you know, it sounds sounds radical, which is supposed to, but reality situation is, you know, like you mentioned, this is embedded into what America is. It was built off slave patrol. The $1,200 that we gotten, that was the same amount that they paid slave patrol to capture slave that were, you know, running away or trying to be free. That's the history. And when we're talking about abolish police, we have to abolish the system of which they operate. We have to have a system that includes the community, transparency, community review boards in every city, town, state, all across the nation. Have us on the community review board able to view the evidence of every case, have mandate every police officer to keep their body cameras on. If they turn it off for any reason, besides, you know, technical difficulties or whatever, it's a federal offense. And for policing to not only just how we treat doctors and nurses that have to go to school for years and years and years and get psychologically tested and all types of tests, police should be able to do the same thing. They have to be reevaluated every so often for their psyche and to be trained to handle people with mental disorders. These are certain ways you can change the system of policing when we're talking about abolishing policing. The way the system was built, we know it's not for us. We get rid of this system, we implement a new system that works with us. That's just a step in the right direction. And I feel like, you know, it's possible. Those are possible. Those are things that are actually possible. Abolishing the police, come on now. We know like it sounds good. I love saying it, but we gotta be real with ourselves. Let's do some things that's really going to be systematically implemented and work from there.
Yeah. All right. I'll take that. I think, um, what we tried to do with 10 demands is lay a framework or a groundwork for steps that can be taken, that admittedly will not, like I said, it will not happen overnight. Some of the things you mentioned, like the transparency and accountability and community oversight, um, you know, are part of that. Um, as we are defunding police departments, as we are, for example, ending solitary confinement, ending the death penalty, ending cash bail, ending prosecutor immunity. There's a lot of things that we can, demilitarizing the schools, ending the school to prison pipeline, ending private public partnerships. So corporations that are donating to certain politicians are not profiting off of prisons, thus ensuring those politicians vote to protect prisons. Like there's a lot that,
It's a lot.
that we can do today. To me, there were two things that you said. One, I was really glad to hear. The other, I wasn't disappointed in you, but I want to make a point on, you mentioned getting rid of the system we have now that isn't for us. And it's not for people like me who are, have been labeled Antifa militants. I'm also working class, but it's really not for you, right? Like clearly you and I are walking down the street. They're going after you before they go after me, even when I have my Jewish star hat on. Like that's not enough. So, I feel you, and only you can really talk to that in a way that I can't. And I was glad to hear you say we have to dismantle what's there and create something new. That was a key element to me. I did find it interesting, though, two aspects of what you said. Essentially more training for police and making sure that the cameras are on. Because what I envision is literally, I know you said it, oh shit. Are you there? Well, folks, this is a first. Hopefully he'll join again. If not, we got a lot of great material.
Sorry about that. I lost service for a second.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I think, I think honestly, well, we're recording still. I may or may not use this part because we could totally just end on your thoughts. But what I was gonna say, if I feel like chopping up this whole thing, is like that. You laughed and were like, "Come on, man! Like we're not getting rid of every cop. That's crazy." You were so far from alone. Like you're not alone. You're the vast majority of people in thinking that. But I truly envision a country, a society without police. To me, I'm wondering if what you're really saying, since you did mention dismantling what we have, like, is it just me that I don't want to hear the word police? Because I have a feeling that what we both envision for the new version is something that works really differently.
Yeah, I mean that's a part of changing the system. Call them community aid or
Right.
something along those lines. We got to get rid of everything. Their badges, the symbols that they have, that represent, that's just embedded with slavery.
Yep.
We have to abolish everything. I don't want to call the police or the cops. I
Yeah.
don't want to call them. I want to call people that I feel like is going to protect me, protect and serve.
Cool.
So if they serve are sworn in to protect and serve, then I should feel comfortable calling them. I don't want to call and the first thing I do is get a responder that has a gun on their hip, or has a taser on their hip, or has something that can harm me or kill me. I don't want to. You don't always have to have those be your first responders. So if we're calling them first responders, call them first responders. But they should be accompanied by somebody from the community, somebody that we can trust. And
Cool.
that's where I'm getting to. I would love to see a society like that,
Yes.
where we can call a number, and it doesn't have to be the police or the cops to deal with situations. That's a part of abolishment as well.
Word. I had a feeling that's what you meant. So good to hear. The last thing, just for whatever it's worth, is that, and I'm reading, I shouldn't say reading, I'm rereading a book that I'm sharing on Twitter because I'm interviewing one of the authors next week. It's called Prison by Any Other Name. And it specifically focuses on the fact that the more we decarcerate currently, because we all want to decarcerate, but the way it's working now in these like touted moves by our elected officials is that we're just replacing prison cages with other cages and more surveillance and more advanced surveillance and control and punishment. And so like the system isn't changing at all. It's just shifting.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that is often brought up in that context is that while it sounded like a good idea to put cameras on cops' bodies and on their dash cams, because we thought they'd act less like racist psychopaths because now they were going to be videotaped all the time, it's also being used along with all the other cameras surrounding us to continually monitor the already criminalized and targeted communities. So I think your point is fair in like why we want those cameras. And since the cameras are already out there, maybe we do insist that they be used because the money's already been spent instead of being put into, jobs training or mental health treatment. They've already been spent. So we should probably demand it's used. But I also suspect that when in this new society that you envision, these people that we're hiring to first respond won't need these cameras, right?
Yeah, eventually, yeah. That's the ultimate goal, to not worry or rely on surveillance. We should be able to live our lives freely, without looking over our shoulders, and damn sure shouldn't be worrying about surveillance from any responders. But unfortunately, this is not the world we live in. Everything. Thank God there was cameras around to see
Right.
the death of George Floyd. Otherwise, we would have never known about it. It would have been another black man dead on the streets. So, cameras can do us good, they can do us harm. And I feel like, being in the 21st century, the big tech and technically advanced world that we live in, we have to fight fire with fire sometimes.
Right,
sometimes, and if we're going to be surveilled, at least utilize it in our favor,
Sure.
utilize it to the point where once again we have members from the community that have access to that.
Yep, I hear that. And then, just to add to that, and I'll let you go shortly, is the other FTP is Film the Police. And that is the reason we were able to see the murder in New York City before or actually in Staten Island of Eric Garner. Because Ramsey Orta, who was with him and filmed that murderous chokehold, said that he was literally walking every time he left the house because of how often they were stopped and frisked. Every time he left the house, he was carrying his camera, his phone, like with the hand on the record button everywhere he went. So that's a fucked up situation to be in. And he certainly wasn't and isn't alone. But right, like you said, like we have the technology. We should be the ones filming them, right? Like, not the other way around.
Yeah, yeah, we have to utilize the things that are given to us. You know, I can tell you now, when I walked into them offices at the Amazon facility when I was hired there, my phone was on record. I want to record what's going on so they can't lie to the public, which they did anyway. But I have my proof. I have my video. I have my records. You know, so we have to protect ourselves. Sometimes we have to fight fire with fire, and if filming the police or having mandated body cam is a one way to doing it, we have to do that, you know, until we get to the point where we don't need them no more, you know, and that's just the name of the game.
Yeah.
Fight fire with fire.
Well said. Any other thoughts you want to share with my audience? Things that, you know, we should know about what your future plans are, like what your next steps are with the Congress for Essential Workers, for holding Jeff Bezos accountable, anything else?
Yeah, just follow and stay in tune with us. Follow us on Twitter at TCOEW, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at shut_down. No surprise there. Shut_down Amazon. No surprise there on Twitter. Follow me. Stay in tune with us. We're going to do a lot of things this year. We're hoping for a positive outcome with the union vote in Alabama, so we can galvanize workers and facilities all across the nation.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I do recommend that before you follow me, follow this guy. Thanks a lot for your time, brother.
No doubt, man. Anytime.
All right.
Take care.
Soon. Peace.
Peace out.